everyone, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis. Today is 11th of May, and this entire video series is brought to you by LawSikho. See, as far as the agenda for today is concerned, the same it can be seen right here on your screens. First, we have an Indian Express article which is titled as The Law on Polygamy Among Religious Groups in India. Here, essentially, we talk about the law regulating the practice of polygamy and bigamy, and we have a look for this purpose at the provisions under the Indian Penal Code, the Hindu law, the Muslim law, and we also have an understanding of some of the figures which throw light on the prevalence of this practice among various percentage of population within various groups in India. And this is going to be followed by our second segment, which is the news update segment. And thirdly, we talk about the legal news update. So with this, let's dive into the TNA for today, starting with the article, which is titled as The Law on Polygamy Among Religious Groups in India. This is going to be our order of understanding of it. So first, we have a look at the recent development which propelled the writing of this article. Then we understand the law under the Indian Penal Code, and we also dive into understanding its essential ingredient, one of which is the validity of the second marriage. Then we talk about the provisions under the Hindu Marriage Act, the Special Marriage Act, and then we also have an understanding of the law under the Muslim law, and we have a look at an important decision of the Honorable Apex Court. And lastly, we have an understanding of some of the relevant figures which shows the prevalence of this practice among various sections of the population in India. So starting with the why of this article, see, recently the Assam Chief Minister, he has announced that the state government, it would take legislative action for the purpose of banning the practice of polygamy across the state. What is polygamy? Let's understand that before we proceed. See, polygamy essentially is the practice of having more than one married spouse, be it the husband or wife, when you enter into a second marriage. And as far as the law governing the same is concerned, we have the Indian Penal Code, Section 494 of it. Section 494, the head note of it reads, marrying again during lifetime of the husband or wife. It essentially provides that whoever having a husband or wife living marries in any case in which such marriage it is void. And why is the second marriage void? By reason of the second marriage taking place during the life of such husband or wife, then in such a scenario, the person committing the second marriage would be liable to imprisonment for a term which may extend to 7 years, and there is also a mandatory fine. See, there are, however, two riders to this law. First is that this provision, it does not apply to a marriage which has been declared void by a court of law. For instance, a child marriage which is declared void by a court of law, in such a situation, this provision, it is not applicable. Secondly, the law also does not apply if a spouse has been continually absent for a space of 7 years. So what does this mean? This essentially means that a spouse who has deserted the marriage, or when his or her whereabouts are not known for a period of 7 years, then in such a situation, it will not bind the other spouse from remarrying. The other spouse would be at a liberty to remarry for the second time. Now let's understand an important ingredient of this section, which is the validity of the second marriage. See, generally, the first wife files a complaint that her husband has remarried. Now, once the complaint is made, the court has to look into the facet as to whether the husband has entered into a legally valid second marriage. So this means that the second marriage, it would have to be performed as per the customs and the ceremonies that are prescribed, and the penal provision, they will not be applicable to, let's say, an adulterous relationship where there is absence of an act of marriage with all the prescribed ceremonies and the customs and rituals. There is a case law in this regard, which is in 1965 Supreme Court decision, the name of which is Kamal Ram and others versus the Himachal Pradesh administration. Here, the Honorable Apex Court reiterated that the ceremonies that provide validity to the second marriage, they must be proved for bigamy to be established. Now, there's another section in the IPC, which is the next section, 495. This section essentially provides a sort of protection to the second spouse when the second marriage was performed by concealing the factum of the first marriage. So it says that whoever commits the offense, which is defined in the last preceding section, which is Section 494 of the IPC, having concealed from the person with whom the subsequent marriage is contracted the fact of the former marriage, then such a person shall be liable to be imprisoned for a term which may extend to 10 years. So the punishment here, it is more rigorous as compared to the offense of bigamy, and of course there is a mandatory fine. See, let's understand what are the provisions under the Special Marriage Act. So, Special Marriage Act of 1954, this was a sort of a radical legislation. Why? Because it sought to mandate the practice of monogamy. There is a section which is Section 4, subsection A of the Special Marriage Act. Section 4 provides for conditions related to solemnization of special marriages, and this section it requires that at the time of the marriage, neither party has a spouse living, so there should not be an existing first marriage. Secondly, we come to the provisions under the Hindu Marriage Act. So it came about in the year 1955. It outlawed the concept of having more than one spouse at a time. And since Hindu law, it is applicable to Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs also, so they are also governed by this act. There are two sections under the Hindu Marriage Act, Section 5 and Section 17. Section 5, it provides for conditions for a Hindu marriage, and it essentially lays down that a marriage may be solemnized between two Hindus when, if, among others, this is one of the conditions, if neither the party has a spouse living at the time of the marriage. By Section 17, it says that bigamy is an offense and that the provisions of Sections 494 and 495 of the IPC, which we've just discussed, they shall apply accordingly. However, there is an interesting law here, which is prevalent in the state of Goa. Now, before we address this, there is a question which often arises. What happens to the rights of a child who is born out of, let's say, a bigamous marriage or a polygamous marriage? So, see, despite bigamy being an offense, the child born from a bigamous marriage would acquire the very same rights as a child born from the first marriage under the law, which is valid marriage. And now let's come to the law that is prevalent in Goa. So here there is an exception to the bigamy law for the Hindus in Goa, which follows its own code for personal law. So Hindu man in the state of Goa has the right to bigamy under certain special circumstances. These circumstances, although are very bizarre, but they are that where the wife fails to conceive by the age of 25, or if she fails to deliver a male child by the age of 30. However, as for the chief minister of the state, he has said that the provisions for the Hindu, it is virtually redundant and that no one has been given the benefit of it since the year of 1910. Now let's understand the law under the Muslim law. So marriage under Islam, it is governed by the Sharia Act of 1937, and personal law, it allows a man to have 4 wives at a time. So there was this practice that was seen by the Honorable Apex Court, that there were certain persons who used to convert to Muslim religions for the very sole purpose of marrying for the second time, even after having a valid first marriage and the spouse existing. So in order to deal with this problem, the Supreme Court gave a decision in the year 1955, which is in the landmark case of Sarla Mudgal versus Union of India, wherein the Supreme Court stated or held that religious conversion for the very sole purpose of committing bigamy, it is unconstitutional. And this was further reiterated in another landmark decision in the case of Lily Thomas, which is a 2000 judgment. Now let's understand some of the figures. See, recently the National Family Health Survey for the year 2019-2020, it came about. It showed that the prevalence of polygamy, it was 2.1% among Christians, while it was 1.9% among Muslims. It was 1.3% among Hindu, and as far as other religious groups are concerned, it was 1.6%. And also there was another trend which was seen that in the northeastern states, this practice was mostly prevalent among the tribal populations. So with this, let's dive into the next segment for today, which is the segment of national news. And now we proceed to the national news segment for today. First, we have an update about the conferment of the Gallantry Peacetime Award. The President of India, Droupadi Murmu, she's conferred 8 Kirti Chakra, 5 of which were conferred posthumously, and 29 Shaurya Chakra to personnel of the Indian Army, the paramilitary forces, as well as the police forces. This was for displaying indomitable courage and extraordinary valor in the line of their duties. Kirti Chakra, it is India's second highest peacetime gallantry award. Moving on to an update coming from the state of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu Champions Foundation, it is recently launched for sports development in the state. The mission of the foundation, it includes identifying, nurturing, and supporting sports persons and putting in place state-of-art sports infrastructure and sporting amenities. Moving on to an update from the state of Telangana. Battery major Amara Raja, it launches Gigafactory in the state. Considered to be one of India's largest gigafactory, it is going to manufacture lithium-ion batteries with a planned investment of around rupees 9,500 crore over the next 10 years. For this very purpose, a memorandum of understanding was entered into between the concerned stakeholders back in December of last year. Next up, we have an update about a book that was recently authored by Kasturi Ray. This is titled as Droupadi Murmu from Tribal Hinterlands to Raisina Hill. This particular book, it tells the very inspiring story of a tribal girl who overcame obstacles to become a very symbol of resilience and of determination. Murmu, she achieved many milestones by taking an unconventional path, starting from when she left her village in a very small district of Odisha to becoming the first citizen of India. And this has brought us to the international segment for today. A rare butterfly genus is named after Lord of the Rings villain Sauron. The genus has been named Saurona after the Dark Lord Sauron. He is the primary antagonist of the epic high fantasy novel called The Lord of the Rings because of the stark or the remarkable appearance of this butterfly. Moving on, COP28 President designate, he has urged oil and gas industries to phase out methane emission by the year 2030. This was done while he was speaking at the UAE Climate Tech Conference in Abu Dhabi. Methane emissions, they are among the top causes of global warming, and according to Paris-based International Energy Agency, fossil fuels operations, they generate over 1/3 of all the methane emissions from human activities. Thus, action on methane, it is seen as one of the most effective measures the energy sector can undertake or adopt in order to mitigate these chances. And next up, we have an update in the segment of sports. So Lionel Messi, he has won the top Laureus Award. Lionel Messi, who led Argentina to victory in the 2022 World Cup as their captain, he was honored with the Laureus Sportsman Award of the Year at a ceremony that was held in Paris. In addition to that, he accepted the World Team of the Year award on behalf of his team, who won the championship in Qatar. He has also become the first athlete to scoop both the World Sportsman of the Year award and the World Team of the Year award in this very same year. Russia, it stages the 78th Victory Day Parade at the Red Square. So Russia, it has held the 78th Victory Parade on the anniversary on 9th of May at Red Square in Moscow to celebrate the historic victory of the Soviet Union in World War II when they defeated Nazi Germany. And this is also known as the Great Patriotic War. Lupus Day, World Lupus Day, it was observed, or it is observed every year on 10th of May. This is created to help the world understand the very debilitating chronic autoimmune disease and how many people suffer from this. As far as lupus is concerned, it is a chronic autoimmune disease which is caused when the immune system, it attacks its very own tissue, resulting in pain and inflammation in the body tissues. And now we've come to the legal update segment for today. So first, we have an update from the Honorable Apex Court, which is given in the case of Messrs. Shri Vishnu Constructions versus the Engineer-in-Chief Military Engineering Services and others. So the Supreme Court has recently ruled that where the notice invoking arbitration, it is issued prior to the coming into force of the Arbitration and the Conciliation Amendment Act of 2015, that is prior to 23rd of October 2015, and the application under Section 11 of the Act, which is the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1996, seeking appointment of an arbitrator, it is made post the enforcement of the Amendment Act. The 2015 amendment, it shall not be applicable. Next up, we have an update from the Honorable High Court of Delhi. So Delhi High Court has recently observed that a wife can seek production of evidence and documents to prove the charge of adultery which is leveled by her against the husband in a divorce petition before family court, and the same it will be in consonance with Section 14 of the Family Courts Act. Section 14, it states that the family court may receive as evidence any report, statement, documents, information, or any matter which it thinks may assist the court to deal with the dispute, whether or not the same would be otherwise relevant or admissible under the Parent Act, under the legislation itself, which is the Indian Evidence Act of 1872. So with this, we've come to an end for the TNA for today. In case you want to get access to the free study material that LawSikho curates or the TNA slides used in this video, please feel free to join our Telegram channel using the link in the description or scanning the barcode here. These are the point of contacts using which you may get in touch with LawSikho. Also, the quiz based on yesterday's TNA, it is made available in the description of this video. Thank you for being with us.